From the moment humans first gazed at the stars, we've been obsessed with the idea of predicting the future. It's one of the most enduring fascinations of our species, the belief that somehow, with enough knowledge, science, or insight, we might peer beyond the veil of time and know what is coming next. But the history of future predictions isn't just about fortune tellers, crystal balls, or horoscopes. It's a sweeping, bizarre, and often entertaining story of humanity's attempts to outsmart time itself. Sometimes, predictions were eerily accurate, shaping how societies developed. Other times, they were spectacularly wrong, serving as comic reminders of how easily human imagination can go off track. The story of predicting the future is as much about hope as it is about fear, as much about power as it is about survival, and as much about creativity as it is about folly. Long before smartphones could predict traffic patterns, or algorithms could guess what videos you will binge next, ancient civilizations were already trying to decode tomorrow. In Mesopotamia, the birthplace of writing, priests and rulers looked for signs from the gods. They believed the universe spoke in symbols, and eclipse wasn't just an astronomical event. It was a warning. The Babylonians studied the movement of planets and stars, not simply for navigation, but for divination. They kept clay tablets filled with celestial records, attempting to correlate astronomical events with what happened on Earth. Did a comet mean famine? Did a full moon bring floods? These early astronomer priests were, in a sense, the first statisticians, though instead of crunching numbers, they sought patterns in the sky. It was primitive science, mixed with superstition. Yet it laid the groundwork for astrology, a system that still persists today in horoscopes and zodiac predictions. But humans didn't stop at the stars. They looked for messages in the smallest and strangest of places. In ancient China, fortune-telling wasn't just entertainment, it was governance. Oracle bones, typically ox scapulae or turtle shells, were inscribed with questions and then heated until they cracked. The diviners would interpret the fracture lines as answers from the gods. Imagine kings deciding whether to wage war, plant crops, or marry based on how a turtle shell cracked under fire. These weren't just personal predictions, they were national decisions, entire fates of dynasties hinging on ancient fire rituals. To modern eyes, it may seem absurd, but to the people of the time, this was the most rational way to manage uncertainty. What is even more astonishing is that many oracle bones contain some of the earliest written Chinese characters, showing that humanity's quest to predict the future is intertwined with the very origins of language and record. The Greeks, too, were obsessed with knowing the future, but they gave it their own dramatic flair. The Oracle of Delphi, perhaps the most famous fortune teller of all time, was said to channel the god Apollo. Leaders, philosophers, and warriors alike would make the pilgrimage to hear her cryptic prophecies. What's fascinating is how vague and flexible these predictions were. When King Croesus of Lydia asked if he should attack Persia, the oracle told him that if he crossed the river, he would destroy a great empire. Encouraged, Croesus went to war only to find that the great empire he destroyed was his own. This is the genius of prophecy. It is always just ambiguous enough to be interpreted in hindsight as correct. Psychologists today would recognize this as a version of the Barnum effect, where people find personal meaning in vague or general statements. But to the ancients, these words carried divine authority, shaping history in ways that continued to echo centuries later. As time went on, predicting the future became less about gods and more about science, or at least the attempt at science. In the Middle Ages, astrology flourished in Europe. Royal courts often had astrologers on staff, not to entertain, but to advise. Even great thinkers like Johannes Kepler, who gave us the laws of planetary motion, worked as astrologers, creating horoscopes for patrons to pay the bills. To us, it seems contradictory. How could someone revolutionize physics while also writing star charts? But in their world, science and mysticism weren't strictly separated. The stars, they believed, they didn't just govern tides, they governed human destiny. As societies advanced, so too did the ambition of predictions. During the Enlightenment, thinkers began to imagine not just divine or cosmic futures, but rational, human-shaped ones. The French writer Jules Verne, often called the father of science fiction, filled his novels with visions of submarines, space travel, and video content. At the time, these ideas were fantastical. But today, Manio Bernay's predictions look astonishingly prescient. Similarly, H.G. Wells, in the early 20th century, foresaw tanks, aerial warfare, even atomic bombs. Some of these visions were warnings, others were dreams, but all were attempts to peer into futures that science was just beginning to make possible. Writers, in their speculative visions, often beat scientists to the punch, proving that imagination itself is one of humanity's most powerful forecasting tools. But for every accurate prediction, there are dozens of hilariously wrong ones. In the late 19th century, futurists confidently predicted that by the year 2000, we would commute in personal zeppelins, eat meals in pill form, and be free from disease thanks to ozone therapy. A 1900 article in Ladies' Home Journal envisioned future women vacuuming their houses with pneumatic tubes, while men shaved with radium razors. Another prediction claimed that New York City would be buried under 9 feet of horse manure by 1950, due to the growing number of horse-drawn carriages. Of course, the automobile solved that problem, but it also created new ones no one had foreseen. These missteps remind us that predicting the future is a gamble. We often extrapolate from the present, assuming trends will continue indefinitely, but history rarely unfolds in straight lines. Technology disrupts, society adapts, and the unexpected always crashes the party. Psychology adds another layer to this story. Why do we even crave future predictions? Studies show that humans are hardwired to fear uncertainty. Our brains prefer even bad news to no news at all, because unpredictability makes us anxious. This is why fortune-telling, even when we don't fully believe it, still comforts us. A vague horoscope or psychic reading gives us the illusion of control, a sense that the chaos of life can be tamed with foresight. On the flip side, we also love bold visions of the future because they fuel hope. Predictions of flying cars or robot assistants aren't just about practicality, they're about imagining a life better, easier, or more exciting than the present. Predictions, whether mystical or scientific, serve as psychological safety nets and motivational tools. In the 20th century, prediction became industrialized. Governments and corporations began hiring futurists, analysts, and think tanks to forecast trends. Rand Corporation, established after World War II, was one of the first major organizations to apply systematic methods to future forecasting. Their work led to advances in everything from defense strategy to computer science. But even with all the data, mistakes abounded. In the 1960s, many predicted that nuclear power would become the dominant energy source worldwide, virtually eliminating fossil fuels. Instead, public fear, accidents, and economics stalled that dream. Meanwhile, almost no one predicted the rise of the internet as the defining force of modern life. Predictions failed not because experts weren't smart, but because the future is always shaped by unpredictable cultural shifts, accidents, and human whims. Today, the game of predicting the future has reached new heights. Algorithms track our online habits to predict what we'll buy, what we'll watch, even who we might fall in love with. In a way, fortune-telling has come full circle. Where ancient oracles read the cracks in turtle shells, modern tech companies read the cracks in our digital footprints. Both are trying to answer the same question. What comes next? The difference is that now, predictions aren't vague. Prophecies there. Precise calculations based on massive data. And yet, even the most advanced algorithms can't always get it right. Just think about how often your recommended videos or suggested purchases miss the mark. The future, it seems, always has a way of surprising us. And that might be the most important lesson in the history of predicting the future. For every eerie success like Jules Verne, envisioning submarines, or for every wrong turn like Zeppelin commutes, or attempts to predict tomorrow say more about us than about the future itself. They reveal what we fear, what we hope for, what we value, and what we can't yet imagine. When ancient rulers cracked bones to see omens, they were really expressing their anxieties about survival. When 19th century inventors envisioned meals in pill form, they were expressing their obsession with efficiency. When today's tech prophets predict artificial intelligence taking over the world, They are channeling both awe and fear about our dependence on machines. So the next time you hear a bold prediction about what the future holds, whether it's colonizing Mars, living forever, or society collapsing under climate change, remember that it's not just about tomorrow. It's a mirror reflecting today's dreams, fears, and blind spots. Predictions aren't just guesses about the future. They're stories about the present, told in the language of what is yet to come. And maybe that's why the history of future predictions, with all its hits and misses, continues to fascinate us. Because even when we're wrong, even when our predictions age like spoiled milk, the act of imagining the future keeps us moving forward. It keeps us inventing, questioning, and striving, proving that sometimes the real power of prediction isn't in accuracy but in inspiration.